Controversy over the price of eggs, Taylor Swift and Paul Kengor's take on that, and Travis Kelce, and more. Make sure that you keep watching. It's going to be a good one. Welcome to the Weekend Spectator. My name is Grace Reilly, and I'm joined by the one and only Paul Kengor. Paul, it's such a pleasure to be with you. And next week we'll be in person together.
That's right. And the great and gracious Grace. Now, last week we did not do one of these because I, ladies and gentlemen, was at Eureka College
Wow.
right there, alma mater of Ronald Reagan. And so I spoke there on February 6th. We usually pre-record these like on a Thursday or Friday. So I spoke there on February 6th, and an amazing place. And in fact, speaking of gracious, really gracious people at Eureka College, I spoke on Young Reagan. And then on Friday night, I spoke about 20 miles away in Peoria, Illinois, at the Fulton Sheen Museum. And this is a topic, Grace, you brought up before that I know you're interested in. I spoke on Bella Dodd, a famous communist, ex-communist, convert to Catholicism. And she was a major convert of Bishop Fulton Sheen. But we should talk about her at some point. She was an incredible story.
Oh,
She'd make
she's
a
definitely
a
on the
great
list.
movie, by the way. She
She
would.
would, yeah, and she has an incredible story of redemption, which you can read about. If he's
Right.
not going to say it, I have to. In his book, The Devil and Bella Dodd, which is one of my favorites. It's very, very good, a very interesting story for sure. But you also just wrote a piece. It's the lead on the American Spectator right now as we're recording this on the price of eggs and what CNN has to say about it in Trump's presidency so far.
Yeah, well, this relates to my trip. So I left a day early to go to Eureka College because it's a long drive and there's no good way to fly there, right? And to beat the storm, I drove halfway and I drove to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I love these old towns, by the way. And speaking of American Spectator, Fort Wayne, Indiana is the home of George Jean Nathan. And if you look at our about history at the website, right, it talks about how the American Spectator was founded over a cheap ale at McSorley's Ale House in New York between Truman Newberry and George G. Nathan. So it's actually the
All
hometown of
great
George G.
things
Nathan.
start, right?
Right, exactly. And so I was at the Fort Wayne Hilton Hotel restaurant right across the street from the gorgeous Church of the Immaculate Conception. And I'm just trying to eat dinner in peace, Grace. All right. And I turn up. They've got CNN on. I don't know what rogue from hotel management put CNN on in this, totally red Republican state of Indiana. And I look up and there's Erin Burnett on CNN. I call her the perky and pretty Erin Burnett in my piece. And the banner headline says, price of eggs a record high or something like that. Trump broken campaign promise or whatever it was. I took a picture of it with my phone and I put it in the article. And I almost spit my wine out while I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, at this point, it's like 2 weeks into the Trump presidency. The guy has done more in 2 weeks than truly any president in like the history of America.
Astounding.
It's astounding. I mean, this makes like FDR's 100 days look like Sleepy Joe's 4 years, right? All this stuff going on. 15-year increase in people in the sign up for the military since Trump was elected in November. Border crossings way down, everything. And here's CNN, moaning, cackling that the price of eggs aren't down yet. And I'm thinking, come, that's really lame, right?
Also,
Really
okay,
lame.
why were the price of eggs up, right? Under the Biden administration, the price of
That's
eggs
a better
were at
question,
record highs, gas was at record highs, inflation
right?
at record highs, rent up 22%. There are crazy numbers across the board where pretty much everything that impacted everyday Americans, from groceries to the cost of living and everything else, were all up and at record highs under Biden. So, maybe they should have complained about it back then, but I don't remember hearing that.
No, no. And of all things, I mean, and they kind of like they always complain about the Trump followers being a cult, thinking Trump's like their god. Well, I mean, you gotta ascribe to the guy divine like powers to think that within 2 weeks of his presidency, he's even going to have the price of eggs down, right? I mean, this takes a little bit of time, people. All right. So just ridiculous that they would be complaining about that. I took a picture of it. I sent it to people, figured I would write about it, and to just make the whole thing lighthearted and fun, I talked about the price of eggs at my place, our little small family farm in Grove City, Pennsylvania, where I have bunny rabbits, a cat, fish, turkeys, and I've got 11 Plymouth Barred Rocks egg-laying hens that have been unbelievably prolific. Now, typically here, Grace, so I've got 11 of these hens. Typically, you get like 8 or 9 eggs a day from 11. All right. And by the way, people listening, that's a lot of eggs, isn't it? These have been laying like 11 a day. One day we had 14 eggs. I mean, some of them are laying like 2 eggs a day. So we're getting like a dozen eggs a day. We've got so many that we're giving them away to friends and family. So at our place, the Kengor family abode, we've got a record surplus of eggs and they're completely free,
You
other
know,
than the price of chicken feed.
my family, so this is so funny. I was just going to bring up the exact point you just made of this being an advertisement for just getting chickens, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. Because my
Right.
family, my mom and stepdad, were just telling me how they have 4 dozen eggs in their fridge that they just like have to give away because they have so much. So everyone, if you want to avoid the price of eggs being that much, you can look away from politics and just feed chickens. That's the
Right.
lesson.
By the way, there's something therapeutic about raising chickens and raising animals and doing kind of basic farming. When the whole world's going completely crazy and people don't even know what gender they are, all right? There's no gender dysphoria among my chickens, Grace. All right. I can tell you that. All right. You know, the female chickens know that they lay eggs. And by the
Okay.
way,
Yeah.
I accidentally got a rooster with this group about 6 months ago, and he knew he was a male. I'll tell you
Oh,
that.
I bet. And I
Yeah.
bet your entire family knows at about 5 a.m.
Oh,
But
and
he's
we had to get rid of him, and he was not following the sort of Me Too movement, if you know what I mean, right? I mean, he would pin these
harass them.
girls down, and just to show that I don't side with the sexism here of the rooster. All right, when I was pretty offended, I grabbed the Louisville Slugger and I went after that thing, and pretty soon we had to ship him out. And about a week or two before Thanksgiving, I took him to Amish country and we turned them into chicken soup.
I bet that was incredible chicken soup. And this is the
It's really good,
cautionary
actually.
tale
Yeah.
of our unified podcast advice of getting chickens. But we
Yeah.
actually
Feminists, you should be happy. He received capital punishment, the death penalty, for
for
his mistreatment of the female chickens.
That's so funny. That's great. We haven't had that issue with our chickens yet, but you never know. You got to be on the lookout for it. But so this is all great advice, right, for everyone listening. Great advice that you all should take. Just buy chickens. You have some more advice for Travis
Yes.
Kelce and Taylor Swift. Tell everyone a bit about that because I couldn't do justice your advice.
Well, I watched the Super Bowl last Sunday, of course. I'm a gigantic football fan, and I was pulling for the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they're from the worst city in America, right? You don't actually want to go to Philadelphia. It's not safe. All kinds of reasons you don't want to go to Philadelphia. I'm from Pittsburgh, but we have 6 Super Bowls, by the way, in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
And
I grew up a
so
Patriots fan, so I had a pretty good childhood.
oh man, yeah, you can't beat that. What Brady did, it's
Oh,
absolutely
and it was the
unbelievable.
perfect timing too. Growing up, they were in it
Yeah.
every
Yeah,
year.
you
It's
you had
great.
really good timing. And I
Yeah.
was at the start of that whole rise with Brady when they came to Pittsburgh and defeated a really good Steelers team that we had. It was just shocking. And I'm like, how did they do it? Belichick, Brady, and you
Mhm.
could see there how good they were. But everyone knew the Eagles were better than the Chiefs, I think. The Chiefs didn't have a very good year. They just had a way of pulling out all these wins. So if a team was ever going to three-peat, it shouldn't be them. I mean, they really didn't deserve it. Look, I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Harrison Butker. I like the coaches, but I was kind of pulling for Philadelphia anyway. So Philadelphia wins the game, dominated. At one point, they were up 34-0. And the whole world's a buzz during the game that weekend. Afterwards, Travis Kelce did not have a great game. I think he caught maybe 3 or 4 passes, not many yards, maybe 40, 50 yards. And the whole world's a buzz now. What's his next career move? My advice: get married. Pop the question to Taylor Swift. You're already, Travis, you and Taylor are already jetting around the world. We see these videos of the two of you frolicking around in bikinis on beaches, right? Staying in hotels together, doing the things that married people do together. How's that for an old fuddy-duddy statement, right? Oh, Professor Kengor, what do you mean only married people do that kind of thing? The kind of thing that only married people ought to be doing. If you don't like that, folks, too bad. We're American Spectator. We're conservative, right? We believe in traditional values. But he should pop the question to Taylor Swift, right? I mean,
Oh,
enough
everyone would
of this. Are they in
celebrate.
love or not?
And you know what? Everyone would celebrate. I think even her haters, Taylor Swift finally settling down after all of this time of the best breakup songs everyone's ever heard. I think
Well,
everyone would feel for
and
her to settle down.
and she is this is a big part of my thinking on this. She's a role model for young women, right? Now, what kind of an example is she providing to young girls living that type of lifestyle? And it reminds me, the American Spectator focused a lot. Dan Quayle was very close to the American Spectator. He grew up in Indiana, went to early Saturday evening clubs, did a lot with the magazine in the 1960s, 1970s. And he famously gave the Murphy Brown speech. And Murphy Brown's before your time, but she's played by Candace Bergen, TV sitcom. And Dan Quayle's criticism was that Murphy Brown, this news anchor in this fictional sitcom series, she's having this child as a single mother, right? And Dan Quayle was saying we shouldn't glorify single motherhood because it's hard to be a single mother. And by the way, Murphy Brown can afford to be a single mother because she's a TV news anchor. All right. She's making hundreds of $1,000s, if not millions of dollars a year. But most moms that are single can't afford that. Now, sometimes they end up as single moms, and that's okay, right? Then they do their best and you support them. And I think the same with Taylor Swift. Most 18, 19-year-old girls cannot afford a man like Travis Kelce, who's won't give them a commitment, flying around the world having sex with them, right? Engaging in entertainment and a carefree lifestyle with them. That's not what a working class girl can afford. Taylor Swift can afford it. She's a billionaire. She's not the wealthiest woman in America. She's one of them. She's one of the wealthiest women in the entertainment industry. So, and am I lecturing her about morality? She lectured us about morality when she endorsed Kamala Harris. Minutes after that debate with Donald Trump, she issued a statement about LGBTQ, IVF, abortion. So, she's not one to, avoid these cultural, moral, sexual subjects. Well, my advice to her and Travis Kelce would be get hitched. Get married. Follow Patrick Mahomes and his wife, Harrison Butker and his wife, Saquon Barkley, and his girl. She's a Penn State grad. They have one or two kids together, and they decided now to get married. Okay, better late than never.
Well,
At
and
least,
this is the point too, where it's like, I mean, it just taps into modern dating, where what is the point of dating if that's not the intention? And
right.
obviously, Christian dating does this fine, where usually it is an intentional endeavor, but there are far too many people, and it's normalized in our culture to just date for fun and go on, yes, all these trips and sleep together, all this stuff, which not only can most people not afford that, but everyone's soul can't. Like, it's not a happy situation to be in. Ultimate.
Let me add a theological statement that'll really annoy Taylor Swift, right? So they're all about birth control and everything. Catholic social teaching and Humanae Vitae by Pope Paul VI warned that a problem with the pill is that men will use women as sexual playthings, and use them to have sex
No
outside of
responsibility.
marriage, right? No accountability, no pregnancy, and thus no need to ever marry them, right? So, what kind of an example is she given to, unless her model to women is, hey, you can go on the pill, you can fly around the world with your boyfriend, you can
Not
sleep with
empowering.
him in hotels. Yeah, yeah. Look at me. I'm my own woman. I can do whatever. Maybe that is the message that she wants to give to them. But ain't my message, baby.
And that's a good because it's not mine either. We agree. And you know what? It's crazy stuff, but a lot of people do look up to her. And my thoughts there are just that people should think a lot more about who they idolize and hold as a role model.
And
And that
she's a
goes
working
for a lot of
class girl
people.
from PA, from Pennsylvania. She probably grew up a Philadelphia Eagles fan, actually. I think she's from Reading,
Yeah,
PA.
she is. She ended up though, like this is the other thing. She moved at a young age to Nashville and was
Yeah,
working in the music industry for a long time. So yeah,
probably with fairly traditional values, I would think. And
yeah,
and that
probably, but it went right out the window. And she's definitely very talented, but just like not a good role model at all.
no, you want to be a role model to those young girls? Get married with a guy
I
you've been
wouldn't take
sleeping
dating
with.
advice from her. I'll put it that out, that's for sure.
Right, right. But a lot of young girls do. And she's not providing a good witness to them, because young girls, most guys like that you're doing that with for a year or two. And I'm not saying it's the case with Travis Kelce, maybe it won't be, but they don't plan to marry you. They're using you. They're using you for
Well,
sexual
she's
recreation
probably using
purposes.
him too. That's the other thing. She's
Well,
probably,
that could
in
be.
her
Well,
case,
that's right. That's right. That could be. That could
mhm,
be. And again, she might see that as, I'm fine with what I'm doing, right? But she can also afford that kind of behavior because she's a billionaire. Most working class girls, 18, 19 years old, they can't afford that kind of lifestyle. And that's going to really catch up with them. And in fact, if those girls end up pregnant out of wedlock from a guy like that, they're going to be stuck, right? Taylor Swift would have the money to do whatever she wanted to do, hire a nanny to take care of the kid, whatever she wanted to do. But most working class girls don't have that option.
that's a good point. And, it's super important to bring back these traditional values, conservative values, family values, and because those are what are actually empowering. And that's what CPAC is going to try to do next week as we recenter around all of these things and look at the current political climate, which is a lot different than it was last year. We're in a pretty good place right now. But looking into CPAC, so we're going to see each other in person next week. What are you most looking forward to? And for everyone watching, again, we'll be recording on the ground live from there, so you'll be able to hear more exclusively at that time.
Yeah, I haven't been there in 5 years since the COVID CPAC of 2020. And I look forward to it as a place just to reconnect with people,
Yeah.
conservatives from all around the country. Frankly, I'm not really ever interested in the speakers very much, but it's kind of like the one place per year that everyone comes together in the movement and reconnects,
Mhm.
and which is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm more looking forward to that than anything else.
Too. Me too. I can't wait. Well, for this week, thank you so much for watching, everyone. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. Make sure that you go to spectator.org to read the articles that we've mentioned throughout this episode and all of the other reporting. And make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this with your friends. And we'll see you on the ground at CPAC next week.
Grazie, Grace. We will see you at the swamp next week.
See you at the swamp.